Good evening. My name is MacKenzie Wilson, alongside someone who's staying warm now after ripping off siding off a house all day long up in beautiful Pinoca, Alberta. My colleague, my comrade, my partner in crime, Chris Noble. How are you doing tonight?
Great. Hi, everybody.
Perfect. So we got a few quick announcements to get through. We've got lots of stuff we've been busy in the background with, and we've got a guest I'm probably most excited for. Is my biggest thing and where I've gotten to this group, when I got into landlording, was how to screen tenants. We'll talk about this a little bit more detail, but really you got a lot of different investment avenues out there, but they typically all rely on someone at the end of the day paying that mortgage bill through rent. So it's very important you get the right person in place to pay that bill reliably. So we'll have that great conversation tonight. Samuel, coming out of Edmonton, is going to be our guest landlord, investor, and he actually did tenant screening as a service as well for a few years. So very knowledgeable guest. We're going to have a great conversation with him. Chris, you wanted to make note of just some of the direction you want to kind of move this group forward with, kind of, I don't want to call it self-policing, but kind of making sure the community looks after each other. And what did you want to highlight there?
Yeah, just like I like our community now. We're celebrating 2,000 members now. And you know what? We've had some little blurps here and there where tenants have snuck in and basically to get in, they have to lie. And it's going to happen. It's what people do. There's not always the most credible people out there, but after talking to Sam tonight, maybe we'll come up with some new ways to screen people to get into this program.
Definitely.
However, what I'm looking for from everybody is there's always a list of people that are put out there welcoming everybody. And you know what? Just take a moment to review it, the list, and all of a sudden if a name tweaks with you, do a little bit of research, find out why it's tweaking with you, check the profile, and write MacKenzie or I personally and drop us a note and tell us what your concern is, and we'll do some more digging. And we want to try to eliminate renters if we can. And I know that we have some owners on here that are renting because they became
job circumstance or whatever. They've shifted from one property and rented out the main house and rented somewhere else. That's
right. And those questions have come up where they've been frustrated with the landlord they have, and they put those questions out. And when they word it, I've gotten notifications saying, I think this person's a renter. Well, actually they are, but they also own property. So they're trying to be good landlords and do their property properly, but at the same time, they're not getting treated properly as a tenant. So it's kind of an interesting dilemma for them. Yeah. So what I'm asking of everybody is just take the time to look it over and just write us personally. We'll work through it. There was a nasty post put up the other night where somebody started ripping on a landlord. I tried to make communication with the person, but you know what? They didn't write me back. I deleted the post. And it got put on late at night, and then it was caught first thing in the morning by one of our members, Nikki, and she let me know right away. And I took it down, and I also took the person off. They're gone. They're blocked. They'll never be back on the page because you don't write stuff like that. We're here to promote everybody's success and back everybody here. So
probably the best thing we've got going is we're 2,000 plus members across Alberta, and we have on average 15 posts a day of people asking questions. We're very fortunate. We have a great culture of people helping people. And I think that's really what this community is all about. So again, our jobs as Chris and I, as kind of these community hosts, if you want to call us that, is we just want to steward the conversation and keep it positive and keep everyone learning and getting the best value out of this group. And that's simply our job.
I'm just going to throw out there too, sorry to cut you off there, Mac, but sure. I just wanted to, I think we need to put this out there as, if you want to write Mac or I personally off the page and you think you have an interest in maybe helping us moderate the page and you have some background skills for, we're screening landlords that are coming on here. Like a simple flag for me was somebody who had been a member of Facebook for 44 minutes. Probably not a landlord. So if there's people out there that think they would like to maybe help us moderate, we probably could use the help. We've reached out once before, but it got put on our back burner, and I think we can, feel safe in putting that out there again, Matt, because we're both run ragged here, trying to get the best content out to you. And you know what? This got bigger on us than we ever expected, and we want to keep it rolling for everybody's success.
100%. Yeah, totally. I know Trish, you spoke up there. So yeah, let's have that conversation again. And then I'll add on that, Chris, one before we get Sam here. I got two quick announcements. I spoke with the VP over at Landlord Credit Bureau. His name's Grant. I now have his time booked going forward. We're going to do every other Monday. We'll see how it goes. We talked about back in October when their CEO, Zach, hopped on the call, and we talked about what the Landlord Credit Bureau can do for you, especially as a screen tool. And I'll talk about that tonight on the show. We will do a focus session. If any of you guys have had damages from tenants that are outstanding right now, rents, utilities, collections on whatever it might be, damages throughout your property, and if it's let's call it $1,000 or more. If you're in that boat, this is the conversation you want to tune in for. We're going to do these focus workshops. We'll show you how you can start the process of actually getting collections going, and the percentage and the return of the amount of time you need to log in a few times to fill in a few forms is phenomenal. We'll have Grant on there. I mean, I think I saw one of the last stats was like 44% collection rate from outstanding debts that got entered into the system. So if you've got nothing going on, you've got thousands owed to you, let's be a part of that conversation. I will kick off a post probably tomorrow. First opportunity will be next Monday, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I'll be hosting that show with Grant, the VP over at Landlord Credit Bureau. Second thing on my plate here before I forget is I've been busy working in the background on my tenant screening course. It's pretty much ready. I'm just working out actual technical issues right now of getting it posted and ready. I've got a short list of people who told me they're already interested. If you're interested, stay tuned for that. That's coming down the pipe. You can sign up as well at findgreattenants.com. On the YouTube channel, I've got a form. You can get your name as well. Those people will get notified first. You'll get an exclusive discount for the inaugural kickoff of that course. All right, we're 7 minutes in. We've talked a lot. Samuel's been super patient. Let's bring him into the fray of the conversation and talk about my favorite subject, screening tenants. Hey, Samuel, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Hi, everyone.
Hi,
Happy to
Sam.
be here. Hi.
Excellent. So Samuel, you tune in from beautiful Edmonton. I hope you guys have the same warm weather we have, about -7 right now here in Calgary.
We have a snowstorm today, so it's all white outside right now.
Yeah, exactly. Cool, awesome. So before we kick into the thick of thing of tenant screen, how about, Samuel, for the people that don't know who you are, give us a little bit of a background of who you are and how you got into real estate.
I'm no one special. I'm just one of the landlord in Edmonton. I do have quite a few of spreader house in Edmonton. So I do self-managing for most of my portfolios, and I have a lot of experience through the years for 7 years now. And I turn into helping others people, and we do tenant placement for the last 2 years for landlord in Edmonton. I do stop doing that now, just let everyone know. But for the 2 years experience, we do over almost 250 tenants placement, which gain a lot of experience, see a lot, and happy to be here to share to everyone that what we know.
Awesome. I'm going to pick your brain, Sam, because I have a lot of questions, and that's where I focus a lot of my energy and effort. So it'll be a good conversation. Awesome. Yeah, you reached out to me. I know we talked about getting some other landlords on the show. I think it's super important to have a variety of perspective and opinions on how to run this business. So thank you for reaching out and contacting me, and glad to have you out tonight.
Happy to be here.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll run most of this conversation. Of course, Chris, if you feel like you need to add something, jump in with us. I know you'll be queuing up some questions in the background, getting people chatting on the show as well, seeing when they're watching. Awesome, you've got that going. So let's just talk about the tenant screening process, Sam. So where does it start when you start fresh with a client, or you're getting a rental listed? Where do you start, and kind of tell me your first couple steps of the tenant screening process?
Well, I think majority of us got trained when your screening start when they apply for your unit. But a lot of people do not aware that your screening actually start when you start marketing your houses. A lot of the time, your rental advertisement can be a great screening process that kick away a lot of people that you don't want. So leverage that, I think, is the most important, and that's people are not aware of that. A lot of the time when we do the advertisement, we make sure we put the most important thing on the first few lines, so that because people attention can only read a couple lines. So make sure you put the rent, who you want, pet or no pet, and you tell them you do credit check upfront. When you're just doing these 4 lines in the beginning of your ad, you already set up yourself very good.
Yeah, totally. And I would 100% agree with you. I know, like what to highlight what you're saying, Samuel, that I've seen that works so well is your ad's a big filter. So if you put your requirements up front, you're going to eliminate the calls that you don't need to be taken and save your personal time of people that are tire kickers. If they read those first couple of lines and they realize that you're doing credit checks or there's no pets allowed, they'll move on to the next listing.
Sam, who are you using for your credit checking background? How are you doing it?
I do use, I used to like the tenant check their own credit, and then I cross-reference with Tenant Verify service. But now I swap all my screening to single key. But and this is what I told MacKenzie too. Those credit checking service is just part of the screening. There's a lot of soft touch. Those are just documents, you back them up. But the actual screening, it should be an interview based, should be in your conversation during the showing or the pre-screen. Those are really just documents to help you to verify the story.
Yeah, it's kind of like hiring an employee. You have just because they have a good credit check, you certainly want to sit down and see if you can actually work with them.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I think my approach to just to kind of build on what you're saying, Sam, is you're looking to collect all these different data points, and we're so fortunate now in 2020 and beyond that there's 10 times the amount of resources out there than there was 20 years ago. There's so many different places to get information now. So you want to collect as much information as possible and verify it's true from all these different sources. You want to ask the same set of questions on the phone call. You want to ask the same questions on the maybe email communication. Then when you're doing the viewing, ask the same questions again. You're looking for consistency across these data points or these questions. And then around the application, this information should be there and it should be matching. If you get someone changing the story along the screening process, going from the initial phone call to the viewing to the application, that would be a red flag that something's going on. And actually, that's another talking point tonight. We'll get into about red flags and what to look for. So, Samuel, I won't be taking more of your thunder. Kind of keep walking me through, and I'll build on what you're saying.
Well, I do want to go back to the advertisement pieces as well. A lot of the time, a lot of landlords have to understand that how you show up in front of your tenants actually is part of the screening tools as well. If your ad is right up professionally, it looks like you know what you are doing. When you respond to your tenant professionally, that actually avoid a lot of professional tenants try to even approach you. A lot 100%. Of professional tenants go directly to those like just being lazy landlord and just write 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And they will never touch like a well-written landlord because they know you put the time into doing that. So they know you will screen harder in general, right? So they will target lazy, easier landlord versus like someone show up very professional.
That is such a great point, Sam, for sure. So when you put your ad out there, it is a extension of who you are as running your business. And if you carry all your requirements up front, it's well written. You talk about the credit checks and all these different things. You're coming across that you're running your business like a business, your rental property. Whereas if you just put one little paragraph with a couple features of the property and say, call me, you're just asking yourself to get targeted by people or tenants that know the system. I think that's such a great point you highlight there, Sam. Okay. What would be your next step if you got someone calling you?
Well, definitely when someone calls us, the first thing we do is we want to pre-screen them. I know different landlords might ask 20 questions. I only have 5. All I really want to know is like, when do you want to move? How many people moving? Do you have pets? Do you have a job? And the reason why you're moving. To me, if this the 5 basic questions you cannot answer me, I'm not going to even waste any more time for this lead. And I think very critical too is I never chase a lead. I always want them to take enough initiative to approach me. so that I know they want my place. Other than when I'm chasing them, a lot of the time I will get myself into trouble.
Yeah.
And then this is where I see a lot of landlord try to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll add on that too. When we get to the applications, I do something very specific about how I offer my application. And then I use the points you touch on, you don't want to be chasing the prospective tenant. I 100% understand, and that's a kind of part of my process as well. So we can kind of dive in that too. Also, I just thought this now too, is put a call to action in the title of your rental ad. Get them to encourage the kind of click through the rental ad and the pictures. And then another thing I'm kind of, as I'm riffing here, is do you put text into your pictures, Samuel? I've just started doing this recently because I know the first thing. I'll ask you the question. So if you're looking on MLS or you're looking at a rental ad, do you look at the text first, or do you kind of look through the 5 pictures and see how the property looks?
Yeah, like this, like advertising is kind of my big thing as well. And if you understand a lot of platform that we use, mostly Kijiji, Rentboard, Rentfaster, your first photo is the most important photos, and then sometimes we add text on the photos so that like you only got one shot, right? Then you put your stuff. You don't want to cram. You just put the most important thing inside. And just again, going back to that too, I have to really stress enough that a lot of landlord think there is not enough lead, or there is not enough people looking at the house, so they pick the next one show up the door, right? That's the formula for disaster, right?
Yeah.
I have to really emphasize that if you're just fueling with the screening, you will not solve your vacancy problem. To solve your vacancy problem is stronger marketing, drop your price, so that now you have a choice of tenant to choose from.
You always want a choice, always.
Yeah.
How do you determine, how do you determine pricing? A lot of questions, like we will get questions on the page. How do I know how much to charge, or what are people renting out for? So what's a good way to determine that?
Yeah, so if your ad is right properly with good picture, good wordings, okay, we really measure it by the responses of the lead, how many people approach you. If you have a good advertisement and you don't get any calls, your price is too high. We are very seasonal market. People have to understand that winter month and summer month can be huge differences, right? You don't start at that price, because in our winter month, your game is just fill the unit for 6 months, and then you have option in the summer month, right? To determine your price, is it too high or too low? It's really based on responses.
Totally. And I'll add on that too is another common question we see is, where should I advertise? And I'll bank that into the pricing part. Is it actually really depends. Every area is different. In Alberta, I'd say Calgary and Edmonton is mostly dominated by Rentfaster right now. I would say the marketplace option on Facebook is making kind of a charge towards that. But what you got to do is pick your product and Google it. So maybe 2-bedroom apartment for rental Edmonton, or house for rental in Calgary. And then those top 3 to 5 results you get off Google is where people are going to look for rentals. And that's where you need to have your rental listed to get the most eyeballs. And you kind of talk about a good point. There's this I call it like an ad disconnection, where Sam, you're saying, if your price is too high, you're not going to get phone calls. Well, if you're getting a bunch of views on your listing, like 100 a day, 50 a day, 75, whatever that number is, and as you watch it over time, you'll get a good idea how to benchmark what you should be expecting for views. If you get a bunch of views and no phone calls, there's a disconnection. Pitches don't line up. Their features aren't right. Maybe there's a problem with your messaging, or your price is off what the market wants. So you adjust it. Okay, now you're getting the phone calls, but no viewings are being booked. Again, that same process repeats from the viewings from phone calls to viewings to applications and so on. So if you're getting the viewings and no applications, you're doing something wrong on your viewing side of the business. And then again, we'll dive into that. And yeah, I love this conversation. I'm already kind of just I'm jiving. So
we do a little bit different approach. When people approach me, say, hey, my advertisement is not working. The first question I always ask is, do you post it everywhere? Like, we encourage everyone use every single platform you can post your ad to. The reason being is different platforms have different audience. You attract different people. When you just try to, I want to save the $25, $35 for rent faster, you're actually closing off your option. Again, now you run into less option to choose in the future. So maximum marketing is the key. And if you look into the percentage of the money you have to pay on the advertisement versus your gross rent, it's a so small percentage. People just come on, like if you vacant for 1 month, it cost way more than like the couple maybe let's say $100 for marketing fee.
Sam, man, I so agree with you there. And on top of that, I've gotten lazy in my last few years. I typically only advertise in 2 to 3 spots, but I'd say do that at a minimum. Also do more if you can. But then you'll know what's working for you, because we're always in these flux of markets. There's new trends, demographics, all these changes are happening. So a really powerful marketing platform, the classifieds of the newspapers are way back when clearly don't work today. But you would not know that if you keep advertising only in one channel or one medium. So if you advertise in 2, 3 places, if all of a sudden you start seeing more interest come in from, say, rent faster, then, hey, maybe that's worth the $35. I should focus my energy over there. But if you're not advertising in multiple places, you might not know that the current platform you're using no longer working for you if it's only one tool you're using.
Yeah, a lot of the time screening don't work for you just because you don't have enough tenant applying your unit. When you have enough marketing, enough tenant, so you have a choice now. You are not in that distress mode that, I have to take the next person because I have been empty for 2 months now.
Then that's such a recipe for disaster too. Absolutely. Choice is key in this business for sure. Cool.
Let's throw a question to Sam here. Sam, one of the issues that pop up on the page are the no-shows. How do you deal with that? How do you avoid that? What's your strategy? You drive for an hour to go across the city to one of your rentals and they don't show. What do you do?
I know a lot of people talk about this, but I have to say showing is the key to this business, okay? You do need to show the place so that you get a chance to meet them and interview them and then sell your house to them to close the deal. So showing is unavoidable, but for people not showing is because they did not do their pre-screening properly, okay? For example, the 5 question is very simple. When with their response, if let's say they have a family of 7 and it's a main floor suite, I know they're not going to fit, then I'm not even offering a showing for them, right? But sometimes, right, people fit every single criteria or they are just borderline, then I will ask my 6th question. Usually my 6th question is, do you know where your credit stand? Do you have good credit or do you know where your credit stand, right? A lot of people, let's say if they are someone that I really don't want to show because I don't think they quite fit, then I would just say, hey, we do have a minimum of credit score, how much, right? Wherever, and then to screen them out. But if they still hit every single pieces, I think I have a good quality tenant then we'll offer the showing. And what we do is, I know a lot of the landlord ask people to text them before the showing. I do it reversely. I like proactive management. I always text my tenant in the morning. I text them an hour before I go. But obviously, if they don't respond to me, I am not going to go there, right? You stagger your showing so that you are not just going for one person, right? But in the end of the day, just recognize no-show is part of the business. And then just like every business have their good and their bad, you just have to recognize that.
Yeah,
right. So it's a part of the business. I agree with you. But what are so one of your strategies is to be texting an hour before to reconfirm. And in your text, you put in, please confirm that you're going. If otherwise, do you say something additional? If they don't confirm with you, you don't go, or what do you do?
Well, I would just basically say, hey, are we still good for the meeting? If I don't get a response, I won't be there.
Okay. I have an interesting friend here in Ponoka, being a small town of, basically 6,500 people. His strategy is for the apartment building, text me when you're there.
So he'll walk over then.
well, no, he'll drive across town, but basically it's text me when you're there because he's had too many no-shows and he's just tired of it, and he won't go unless he knows that they're waiting. So
see that's interesting. That's the difference between Sam and myself here in Calgary and Edmonton, cities over 1 million, and a small town approach is, if you're there, I'm going to make effort to make the viewing happen because, again, it's a 2-minute drive across town. But I'm the complete opposite of you, Sam. Like you said, most people, I get the tenant to so I'll do my initial call, a phone call, and I'll say at the very end, okay, great, thank you, Jane. We're booked in. You're 7 p.m. tomorrow. Yeah, please note an hour and a half, or pick your time frame depending on how far you have to drive. Send me a text to confirm the appointment. If I don't get this appointment, I consider it a no-show, and I don't show up. I just help avoid and save time. And then you just go, yep, no problem. And it's probably like 80 to 90% accurate. I find it's the majority of the time, if someone's texting me an hour out, they're already on the way driving, or they've got it figured out. And if they don't text me, cool. I don't waste time, move on, save my evening. And sometimes I get a text saying, hey, I'm at the property. I'm like, okay, cool. You didn't send me a message. So here's my system. We got to rebook you. I'll rebook you for tomorrow or whenever else. And the same thing, text me an hour and a half out again. And I save so much time with that. And then I wanted to riff too on what you do, Sam. So I don't do it. I do a little bit differently. Like I don't ask, or I don't use the credit score as a filter, but I do say, hey, oh, by the way, as part of my due diligence, I use background and credit checks as my screening process. Do you have any concerns with this? And then you'll be amazed at what people tell you. They're usually really truthful about their situation. Yeah, I've gone through divorce and my credit's really bad and this and that. And I go, great, no problem. If your credit score's not the best, I have other means to validate your income. But yeah.
Yeah, so I do similar thing too, but like I said before COVID, when we do more in-person showing, I love to ask that question in person, eye to eye. I will ask, hey, we will do credit check, just let you know upfront, what do your credit score looks like? And usually we get answers either like, oh, I'm not sure, I'm bad, I'm good. The funny part is like we ask them, how's your credit looks like? And then when they say bad, usually when we check the credit, it's bad. When they say not sure, their credit usually is even worse than the bad. Yeah. And then when they say good, their credit is still bad, I'm telling you. With our experience, if a tenant have good credit, they will tell you the actual score. It's so easy to track right now for their score. Yeah. So that's why if a good tenant and they're tracking on their own credit, they should be able to tell you the score, right? Those are the most fun questions I always ask every single showing.
I love it.
And how much weight do you put on a credit check score?
I do put quite a bit, but it's not everything. If they're upfront, and then we don't only look at the score, we look at the report. What causing the reason to lower the score? But here's what landlord, a credit score high and low, the difference is when people have a higher credit score, they tend to be care about the score more, so the default rate will be a little bit lower. People have a lower score, they already screw up the score, so they're not as concerned. In the end of the day, there is good tenant with bad credit score, and there's bad tenant with good credit score. It's just like, as a landlord, you have to understand the meaning of the score is just, do you have collateral to go after them? If, let's say, they have a good one, then you have a little bit more collateral to go after them because they care a little bit more, right? Yeah. So it does weigh quite a bit in our practice, but it's not everything. We approve tenant because their score just go to the drain just because they go to shop for their truck for 15 dealership, and every single one pull their score, and now their score is so low, but they have no collection or anything.
Wow. Yeah. Are you now, we brought the Landlord Credit Bureau in as one of our partners, and MacKenzie addressed it earlier, but are you using them? Are you starting to report to there? Because we had one of our members report tonight. I'll go back to his question in a second, but are you using them?
They are quite newer to me. I'm very happy to see them come up now. So then I think a lot of landlords should start doing that. I'm quite lucky in my practice for the last 2 years. We never evict any tenants. We do our screening quite well. In my own portfolio, I never need to go to LTDLS at all. so I don't have the chance to go after someone for collection yet. So I don't have that experience to share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, fair enough. I'll add on that. Shoot, and then there's 3 talking points. Now they've kind of blended together. So I'm going to try to riff here quickly and add. So I'm going to summarize what you said there, Sam, to make sure I've captured the point you want to get across. Is definitely it helps to have a good credit score, of course. But if it's questionable or whatnot, that credit score is only a part of the picture. One tool in the toolbox that you use when you screen your tenant. You're also looking at a variety of different other pieces of information to verify that you've got the truth that you're looking at.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Awesome.
It's just part of it.
Yeah, definitely. And then the other thing I do, and you mentioned this too, Sam, is when you go out and drive out to do a viewing, you don't drive out typically for one viewing. You typically drive out for maybe 2, 3, 4, 5. I call it tea time bookings, where you book them in 50-minute intervals back to back to back. And probably the really cool thing about this that you'll notice once you start doing this firsthand is you get those people who are on the fence about applying or not. They all of a sudden see 2 of the tenants before them walk out, and then as they leave, tenants at the door coming in, they get this third-party validation that this place is actually going to be rented. There's interest going on. So when they go and ask you the question, well, how many other tenants have looked at your property? Like, well, you're the 3rd one tonight, and I've got bookings tomorrow and the day after. They're going to a lot more likely send you that application that night, as opposed to you maybe following up in 2 days to see if there's even interest.
This strategy worked perfectly before COVID. COVID does change stuff because majority of our unit right now, we have virtual tour. We have a video of the tour. So the showing pieces substantially decrease now. But every time when we go out to do a showing, it's a quality lead.
Yes, I would agree. Totally.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's say we're at the viewing. So what do you do now?
During the viewing, there's a couple of pro tips I can share to everyone. I think it will help a lot as well. For the viewing, a lot of the time, people just remember you have to prep your house. So make sure you turn on the light, open the blinds, showcase your house when they arrive. I personally like to just go around the house and then let them do their thing. I would just wait them in the beautiful spot in the house, let's say the kitchen or the living room, but I would just wait for them to talk to themselves so I can listen to what they say in the background. And then when they come back in the most beautiful spot on the house, and then I will start talking. But that's the time actually is the actual screening happen. The conversation, what you get, you don't necessarily make note on the notebook, you make note here, but in the future, when you do your document check, it's exactly what you want to look for. During the conversation, a lot of people will tell you way more in person than a text or an email or a document. Obviously, we are not interrogating them on the spot. We're trying to build into the conversation so you can ask them smartly, but you get your answer in the back. And this is the most critical time for us to look for tenant attitude. People have to understand when a tenant looks great on book, doesn't mean they are good tenants. I'm heavily, right now, I'm heavily screening tenant with great attitude that can work with us rather than I want someone to have good job or good income. I need to look for the attitude pieces. In a pandemic today, no one knows what will going to happen. The worst thing I want is someone that cannot work with me when a situation happens. So this is, I think, part of it when, in the end of the day, if they have great attitude, you have a good gut feeling on them and a click, and then you do the document confirmation, they are a great tenant. Without the attitude pieces, I don't even go to the document. And this used to be a lot of people relying on the previous landlord on their attitude references, but I can tell you those references from the previous landlord, a lot of them is not 100% accurate.
Yeah, there's a bias, especially if it's a. I'll probably add to where you're going with this, Sam. If you're looking, ideally you want the second or the third previous landlord reference because they have no skin in the game anymore, and they're going to be probably truthful on how that relationship was when they had that person as a tenant. If you go to the previous or the current landlord who they're coming from, if it's not going well, you might get a shining review from that landlord to get a problem out of their own hair, and that can kind of come back to bite you, unfortunately. One thing that's cool. I kind of do that, but I generally start talking whenever I end up talking when I'm in the house. But I like the idea of taking it back to the most beautiful part of the house, because you set that subconsciously in their mind how nice your property looks when you're kind of going through that questions. I typically do if you're new to it, I'd say suggest doing a buddy system where if there's two of you, which would be a good thing for females too, especially if it's the first couple time doing your viewings, have someone there with you just for additional comfort and security. But this allows you to do two things. You can have one person taking notes and listening to all the details of the conversation, and you can allow yourself, if you're the main person carrying the conversation, just to focus on keeping the flow, keeping the prospective tenants talking, and you'll get a lot more information like what Sam said. And if you use open-ended questions, what, why, how, and you force yourself to bite your tongue and pause and don't say anything, their human tendency is to fill those awkward voids with conversation, and these tenants will tell you a lot more than what they usually want to tell you, or unintentionally in ways. So
yeah, definitely.
Adding on to what you're saying, Sam, I love your system. Very, very cool. Awesome.
Okay, Sam, I put a question up on the screen for you to answer. Can you read it there?
Yeah. So have you had experience with a high school grad, no landlord reference? What would you consider? Would you consider them as a tenant?
Sorry, what is a high school grad?
Oh, like high school or university?
Oh, high school grad. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of young people come to rent as a roommate usually. It really depends on scenario. A lot of the time we have to have the parents to co-sign, especially they don't have a lot of the time they don't have the credit. But for us, no problem, we'll accept this type of tenants, but we do make sure when we allow this type of tenants, we make our rule very strict upfront, and they will have to even sign a roommate agreement together. So that's saying that, hey, if one move out, the other one will not still responsible for everything. So everything, you have to educate them a little bit more than a normal tenant, so they know the consequence upfront before they signing up with you. And a lot of the time, the co-signer pieces, it really depends on why they want to move together. We have at least 5 tenants in this summer from Manitoba to Saskatchewan come for medical school, nursing school. So those are great tenants for us. Sometimes it will be sometimes it will be we just approve a basement tenant is a girl just want to move out from the parent basement, but the parent come with her, right? So that itself tell you how the family situation is. The first question we ask is, if your parent will not co-sign with you, then we will hesitate a little bit. What is your relationship with your parents, right? No one back you up.
Yeah. I'm going to highlight, you gave some great pro tips there, Sam. So I'm going to kind of package them up because I really want to highlight that's like great information you gave. So if you've got really young folks that don't have credit or previous references, landlord references, because they're new, the number one thing right there is getting a co-signer with their parents. So that basically you've got more bank accounts to go after should something go sideways. But the other thing I thought was a great pro tip that you mentioned there, Sam, was you talk about this roommate agreement. So yes, you have a lease, you get them to sign the lease, but there's a bit of a psychology factor at play when you have to put pen to paper and sign your name to a document. Your tendency is to pay a lot more attention to it. So I like what you do is you almost do a second layer of paperwork to really highlight expectations up front with someone who's new. So you're educating them so they understand their role and responsibilities as a tenant. Very cool.
Usually they're good tenant too. I like young people. A lot of them, they are still fresh. They're still
they're
a piece of
moldable.
white paper. Yeah. They're moldable, yeah.
Yeah, they're you give them a good framework and you get good expectations up front. 90% of them are like, okay, cool. Then they know what to do. It's that unknown ambiguity, if I'm saying the word correctly, where it gets into a gray area where they're not quite sure what they should be doing. You have certain expectations. There's a disconnect there, and then it becomes a finger pointing game, which is not good for anyone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and someone says right there, 911 house buyers. I get the parents to co-sign with younger adults that do not have reference. Exactly. So you're just backing yourself up with basically a bigger bank account that can, if something goes sideways, you can go after for your liabilities. So awesome. All right. What's the next step in your process there, Sam?
Well, then a lot of the time we don't offer the tenant application. We want them to take the initiative to ask for application. That make a big difference because, well, just saying, even though if a tenant asks you for application doesn't mean they want to apply. It's just a Canadian polite way to just get out of the door. Okay. Yeah. But when someone asks you for the application, it does means they want it. And obviously, one of the key things we look at is how long does it take them to fill back the application to us? Mm-hmm. The timing itself, gathering document, it already tells us a lot of about them, right? Our application is PDF viewable, so it's very easy for them to do it on the phone to get a document. If a tenant already prepared or they has been tenant for a while, they should already know every single landlord asks the same pay stub, credit check, and also the application. So they should be they should be prepared. But if it takes them forever or I have to chase any document, I tell every tenant, I don't have application, the credit check they used to check themselves. Now I ask them, I send them a link from Single Key and they will fill it in. Yeah. And then application, credit check, and also the pay stub, 2 pay stub.
Perfect. Yep.
If I don't have all 3, I don't even process the application. I tell them upfront.
Don't even waste your time. And good. And you're setting expectations again of what you need to run a business. You're professional. You have all these requirements. You have a system. It just showcases, you run a tight ship, and I love that. You're one of the few that do the same thing I do. Is I used to offer my application all the time, and I got like a dismal 20%, 25% of the time I got applications back. I stopped offering it, and I wait for them to ask me because it's a great indicator of interest if they're going to figure out the next step in the process. I love it because if they actually ask for it, I find the return rate's well over 50%. That's great. And I love that you have, again, the systems of asking those different kind of components. So I'm kind of curious. I used to have my own application and I've gotten a little bit lazy and I lean on both Single Key and Neighborly for doing my application. Sometimes there's some information I still want, so I'll come back after the fact and ask certain questions. But what do you ask on your application, Sam, that's different, say, from Single Key or Neighborly?
So I know they have their own version of application. I still want them to fill out mine for a couple of reasons. There's a couple of questions that I want them to answer. For example, is do you know where your credit rating is? This option is good, bad, fair, or unsure, and recent. I want to see that. Okay. Another piece of information I really need there is the emergency contact. Yes. A lot of the time, the emergency contact, it's more for record, first of all. Second is a lot of the time when you try to find a tenant on the social media, his name may be Chris, but he might call himself Batman. Who knows? In Facebook, right? You can very easily find them through the emergency contact. They will, because it's the emergency contact, they has to be related in Facebook. So you can. So that's one of the purpose for emergency contact. And most critical pieces is in the bottom of my application, there is a column say, you authorize me to pull your credit or criminal check if I need to, and then they sign and date on that one. That little clause is a very powerful clause, which you don't get if you use Single Key or Neighborly or anyone, because they authorize them to pull the credit, not me. I need that phase in the future. If I need to chase them down, pull their credit again, I need that signature to do so.
Exactly. And that is such a powerful tool. And you'll hear our eviction guys on the website, Rob and Don Gray. I know, Don, you're watching right now. You guys love this stuff. If we get this information, You wait 6 months, a year. Maybe you've got a couple $1,000, $5,000 outstanding on rents and utilities and everything else and damages. And you pull this credit 6 months later and you find out they moved to Calgary from Edmonton and they're in the Northeast. Well, you now know where to go to collect and garnish wages. So I totally agree with you, Sam. It's such a powerful tool. I actually gave feedback both to Viller over at Single Key and Neighborly, and that is coming down where they're going to add that clause printable on the application. And then when they sign it, you now have that authority. That was one of my, I've had conversations with these guys ongoing for a bit now, and I've been providing some nice to have to make the tool a little bit better. So that's actually a change that we should expect to be coming. So very cool. I love it. You're so on point. That also, I like about using that emergency contact. So let's call a spade a spade. You'll never, ever actually call the emergency contact. Well, the odds are very, very low that you'll call it for the purpose of being an emergency contact. You may call them in the future and call Aunt Sally or Uncle Joe and say, hey, your nephew, Billy, hasn't paid his rent, and I'm not sure what's going on. You call a family member, what they might do behind the scenes. The next thing you know, that kid's coming up tomorrow paying you that missed rent. So you've got another avenue you can use, which is super important. And I like how you use it as a social media check too by finding their relations on Facebook and so forth. Great points. That's a pro tip right there.
In my screening pieces too, the emergency contact, what the relationship make some wages as well. If the emergency contact is just a friend versus a family member, make a big difference to me as well.
Yeah, having a good framework or a family network to rely on, then they've got the support network.
Yeah,
I'm going to put a couple comments up here. This one here, where she said that Google their phone numbers, and then all of a sudden she threw up a second comment and said, here she Googled a number and found out it was an escort service. So
so powerful.
And here's another Google strategy. He said, I've Googled and found out they were actually criminals. So yeah, you come up where there's been a news release regarding somebody. Boom, there's their picture. Boom, there's your driver's license. You're looking at the two and go, wow, is that what you want in your house, right? So
definitely.
Google's amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I'll draw upon the differences between Single Key and Neighborly. Again, I think they're the top breed in terms of credit checks, credit check reports you can get right now on the market. Single Key's big power advantage is they give you every line item and financial product they've ever had in their life. And the typical credit score reports, like around 8 pages long, is just the credit score. That doesn't include in the application and all the other stuff. And then what Neighborly does very well on the flip side, that I think Single Key's moving this way as well, is you get a copy of a government issued ID, which I absolutely love, because you should be collecting that to have that information so you know who you're dealing with, and ensuring that it says Tom Smith on the application. It actually say Tom Smith on his driver's license, so you're not getting bogus information. It's another good way to cross-reference data points. I had one gal, I remember this quite clearly, and I was using Neighborly. This has been 3 years ago now. She took a legitimate passport and took a picture and put it into Neighborly, but she clipped the bottom passport so the serial number wasn't there. But she had the expiry date on there, and it wasn't expired or anything like that. It was super kind of tricky of her, and it almost caught me, but I almost got by me. But then I looked at it 2 or 3 times, because I had a spidey sense, or something was going off, something was bugging me, and then something, because they were really pushy up front. You know what? Let's take this part right now. Man, we're already at 10 minutes past the hour, or 10 minutes to 8 o'clock. But what are some red flags that you guys see that if you on a phone call or on a viewing that happened, that just you want to walk away, or things you just kind of see right off the top there that you don't like?
If someone tell me they have first month rent and damage deposit ready to move in tomorrow, I don't like those. Like those, usually either they got kicked out, they have some issue, or if they tell me they are living with family and friends, like I'm sleeping in one of my buddy couches, those are definitely a red flag to me right away.
Yeah, I'm gonna just echo that, Chamber, because that's so true. You have a process. You follow it all the time. You don't rush it. You don't make exceptions for other people's circumstances. It's not your fault. Someone's asking you to move in tomorrow, hands down. So if you go and you follow your system, move on. If someone wants to move in like right away and they've got that money up front or they're paying in cash, that's a huge red flag for me. I don't like that. I find if people give you a very long sob story about a certain situation, they talk on and on and on about it, that's another red flag. I get life happens, and you know, if they want to make a quick note of it, good. But if they kind of dwell on what that problem is in their life, to me, that's a red flag. And it also kind of lends to the victim card where, you know, it's not the tenant's fault. It's this circumstance. It's their employer. It's whatever else. You don't want that as a person as a tenant, because it generally means that relationship's going to be very difficult, and they're going to look to you as the problem if things don't go their way.
Yeah, definitely. And when we go back to like all what we have been talking, you can notice there is at least 10 different points that we have start our screening before it go to documents, right?
Yes.
People just have to understand this is a process. You cannot take shortcut so that to protect yourself.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else I could find for those red flags. I'm looking at it right now.
I'm going to put red flags up here as people put them up. So just keep an eye on the screen. So Dawn just put one up here. That's very straightforward. We've already discussed that in a big hurry, right? Here's another one for Sandra. She says, a dirty vehicle. You know, it speaks to, you know, when you walk by it, I have to agree. But you look in the vehicle, is it full of candy bars and junk and everything else? Like that speaks to, if you look after your possessions that way, how are they going to look after your house? I think that's a flag.
Yeah.
I have another big one too. If a tenant show up with every single document and they talk very well and understand all the rules, they are professional tenants.
Yeah, that's true. If they know the rules and they're testing on the system for sure. Yeah. I totally agree with you there.
Had a landlord out of Sherwood Park communicating with me on Messenger, where she had a tenant where Shannon, she's actually a property manager and a realtor up there. She had a tenant who was trying to tell her how things were going to be. And the tenant, even when she snuck onto our page, I figured it out in about, well, it took me a minute or two to figure out she wasn't legit. And she got onto our page and saw the posting, and I got her off right away. But she felt as though everything that was being said was wrong about her. Shannon went ahead and videoed the whole walkout, and the stuff that person was saying was so far out in left field, but yet they think they know the rules, and they're totally outside the rules. So
yeah, they shouldn't be dictating terms to you. It's your property. Yeah. I'll add one more. I just remembered here is when they offer to pay the damage deposit in installments because they can't afford to do the damage deposit all up front. If they can't put the money together for first month's rent and a damage deposit, to me, that's just a huge indicator that their ability to pay rent on time consistently is very low. That just, I would not accept a damage deposit paid over installments.
What do you do with a tenant who wants to move one damage deposit, wants to maybe better themselves? And I guess this is all part of the screening, but they want to move damage deposit. That's going to be their damage deposit from you, from coming from another place. How could you manage that? That's, you know, today's rates, you know, somebody's paying $1,600 a month. You got to have your first month's rent and your damage deposit $3,200, and they got another 16 sitting over there. So we're at $4,800. How do you manage that?
Well, I don't take that tenant. The reason being is it tells me they don't have any rainy fund. If anything go wrong, they just don't have the money, and the first people they won't pay is you.
Yeah.
Perfect. No rain. So you're telling you they have no savings.
Yeah, no savings.
They can't manage money if they have to rely on $1,600 coming from one landlord to the next. They should at least have that amount, like $3,000 to $4,000, $5,000 in their account as a balance. That's what I would expect as well.
Yeah,
it's nothing new, right? But they know they have to pay this money for moving, and they should prepare for it or save up for it, right?
Yeah, can't buy groceries in installments. Absolutely, Don.
Don's always got the one-liners there. Good for you, Don. I like when you're on the show. You're always coming up with something.
Going back on the topic of red flags, I saw Gigi throw this up, and I would totally agree with her too. Is, you know, I get relationships aren't perfect, and if they just say, you know what, it didn't work out with my previous landlord, we had a difference of opinions on how some things should have played out, that I get. If they go and say, yeah, my landlord was a bad person, aggressive, they did this, they did that, and you know, they just, as she says, bad mouth, that also is a bit of a flag too. Because I'm like, if they're gonna treat their previous landlord, that might be how they treat me if I'm trying to run an honest business and they don't like what I'm doing.
So here's a question then, not a question, more of a statement. So that person's standing there in front of you, bad mouthing their last landlord, and you show play the sympathy card just as a play. You say, "Oh, well, that's awful. Can I get your landlord's name as a reference?" I guess they should be pretty freely giving that to you. Say, "Well, I'd rather not." Well, is that another flag? I would say so.
I like that. That's a good play, Chris.
Or even they say, "Oh, I have to break my lease, but my landlord is fully aware." Then at that point, I'm telling you that landlord reference is biased. I don't trust just that statement.
So you're saying if they say I'm breaking my lease, but my landlord's aware and okay with it, that's a red flag for you. Like, what would you expect from that landlord? You know, why would they let them out of a perfectly good lease unless there's something else going on?
Yeah, if they're a good tenant, they would not let them go, right?
Yeah, totally.
Well, and if they are letting them out, guess what? They're paying two rents.
Yeah,
which doesn't really make a lot of sense either. No. You know, and this goes back to some of my scripted phone questions that I use. One of them is, have you given proper notice to your current landlord? And because really, if they're generally, people are creatures of habit. If they act and they treat their current landlord fairly, that's probably a good indication they're going to treat you fairly. And vice versa, if they haven't given proper notice, that's probably something you can expect down the line. They're going to do the same thing to you when they move on to the next house. Yeah. Okay, this is such my favorite topic. We're almost at the end of the hour, and we haven't even get into how to do any of our reference checking yet. So, Chris, what's your thought here? Do we? I know I posted some questions too to take. Let's tackle those questions. Because we did promise some people to answer those questions, and then we'll see where we're at. If not, I sound like I should probably get Sam to come on another show and keep sharing his wealth of knowledge. Yeah,
I think we could probably do we have guests planned for next week already?
I've got one more show this year. It's the second Wednesday in December. So
let's get Sam back then when we got a free spot, and we'll talk about checking out the references because we'll spread it out. We'll keep the people wanting more. Come back for the sequel.
Sounds good to me.
Cool.
Episode 2, Sam Lie. Samuel Lie, episode 2.
Like we're an hour in, and there's so many things I haven't really touched base on that I do in my tenant screening. Like, this is easily an all-day conversation. It really is. And again, that's the level of detail you guys want to be doing when you're screening your tenants, because if you get that part thoroughly done, it really, I'm not going to call it cruise control, but the rest of your lease goes really, really smoothly by doing a bunch of this work up front in your due diligence.
Sam Lie, 2 weeks. Join us then and watch the show.
Okay. Perfect. Well,
we're going to get everybody back watching, I'm sure.
Okay, I'm just tracking down because I did post a bunch of questions here, and I want to collect them because we did promise some people, and I'm just clicking on them right now. My computer's fighting me. Oh, there it goes. 6 more. Here we go. Okay, so we talked about the red flags. Oh, this one's a good one. It says, hello, landlord friends. My partner and I are doing a walk out tomorrow and suspect the tenant will bring an entourage. We want to ensure that we are by the book on this one right now. Is there a rule on how many people can be in attendance for a move-out inspection? Thanks for your input. So Sam, you're doing a move-out inspection, and then you have a feeling that tenant isn't quite happy and might show up with 5 or 6 people at your move-out inspection. How do you handle that situation?
I would definitely bring someone with me then, just as a witness, as a protection, or if someone needs to call 911, there's another pair of hands, right? And if you are worried about this type of situation, I would suggest don't go. just try to get professional help. Like we run into if we run into situation that we know the tenant have a potential of aggressive endangering you, I would say like reschedule with some proper people go with you.
Yeah, for sure. Set the expectation up front. It's typically, you can say the people on the lease, if one of the people who are on the lease can't make it, I would accept someone in lieu, maybe a parent or a good friend. That totally happens. There's life going on. You can't make everything. You're also, what's the rules from the RTA? You have to give 3 different opportunities. Two or so it's 2. Okay, so you have to give 2 different opportunities for the tenant to make the move out inspection on different days and at different times of the day, if I remember that correctly.
I think you have to also get drilled into your head that this is your $300,000-$400,000 investment. This is yours, and you need to stand at the door, and when they show up with everybody, you say, well, who are all these people? Well, they're so and so and so. Well, they're not on the lease. This is a contract between you and I. You can have one person come in with you, but everybody else is going to wait outside. This is not a business deal between you or I and these other 4 people. It's between you and I, and I'll allow one other person in. Your other play in this, in my opinion, and you may as well use it, is your COVID play. And why not?
Right now.
Yeah, if you don't have the inner strength to politely tell them to pound sand, sorry, you're getting the criticisms here. You'll get MacKenzie's finesse later, but you know what? They can wait outside, and I don't care. Otherwise, I close the door and I'll walk away. And it's your game, it's your rules, and the rules that we have are given to us by the RTDRS. There's nowhere in it that the RTDRS says, yeah, they can have 14 people come and make sure they're safe and you're doing it right. Now, it doesn't work that way. So stand up for yourself, and like Sam says, bring somebody else with you if you're anticipating the problem or you're anticipating conflict. I have brought somebody with me because it was a female checking out, and I did have a conflictual situation with them. They lasted 60 days, and I accepted their need to leave with open arms, and I actually was all but helping them pack to get out after 60 days, and because I could see where what was going to happen. But I had someone come with me, and that person, unbeknownst to me, which was great, turned on their recorder throughout the thing, but it turned out fine. But ask someone to come with you, say no. It's your right to say no. It's your property. It's your business. Run it like a business. It's not a charity.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Sam, like I've just started using this thing now. I do video move-in inspections and move-out inspections. I'll record a 15-minute video walking through the house, and I'll make sure I accidentally get my tenants on film. So they're present, and they're clearly caught on film doing a move-out inspection should they have a contest down the road. I haven't had to use it yet. I'm very similar to you, Sam. I haven't done too many evictions. I have asked one set of tenants to leave that I adopted on a home purchase, which weren't originally my tenants, and then I didn't renew them, and then I had one tenant so far that I had to ask them to leave. And what happened was, long story short, she was great. Second or third year in on her lease, she got a boyfriend that I would never touch at the 10-foot pole, but I said, you know what? I have a track record with you. You've paid rent. I've never missed rent once. We're on a second or third lease. I'll take you on. He was not very good. Long story short, he robbed a gas station for some scratch and win tickets. Cops came to the door to arrest him, and he decided to jump through my bathroom window. The same day I had my basement tenant moving in. Like literally, she took possession hours ago. She's carrying boxes up and down the stairs. 2 cops come running around the backyard to capture this guy with their weapons drawn. And to my new tenant of like 3 hours gets a pistol pointed to her face and told to go back in the house by the cops. And I was just like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? So I basically told them, I walked through her. She was nice. She was like quite upset because her boyfriend, or now fiance at the time, did that. And I was just like, if you're in her shoes, what would you do? Would you feel comfortable living here? She's like, no. She's like, that's why I'm asking you guys to leave. Okay. I gave them an extra 30 days and they moved out 2 months later, and I didn't even do the eviction process. I was able to negotiate it, but it does happen. If you're in this game long enough, you will eventually have to remove someone. So
yeah.
Don Gray just posted up here, and it slipped my mind here, but we have 4 eviction specialists on our team here on our webpage. And Don made sure he mentioned to me is one of the services he offers is if you feel intimidated, is he will do the walkout inspection for you because you're in that conflictual situation. And of course, Don knows the rules, as does Dean Marsh and Rob Bonin. You see him lots on our page.
And Conrad too. We got Conrad as well.
And Conrad Rattray, he's up there, but you can find him on our page as landlord and tenant specialist is the name of his page. Yeah. So we have some great solid guys, and they'll, of course, everything comes with a fee, but I guess it comes down with your comfort zone, what you're prepared to do, and is it worth it to you?
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, Samuel, we're a little bit past the hour. For once, I want to say thank you. You've given us an hour of your time tonight to help other landlords out. You gave a lot of pro tips. So, folks, if you're just tuning in now, please come back, rewatch it. Sam was on point tonight. He's talking about my favorite subject, tenant screening. And Sam, what I'd like to do with your time tonight, I want to give you a bit of the limelight. If you've got a business venture, a passion project, a charity, really anything that's important to you that you want to share with our community, now is the time. And please go ahead and share anything that you want to share.
Well, my sharing my experience is one of my passion, because I find being a landlord is very difficult, right? And then I want to encourage anyone, just reach out and ask. There is always someone encounter your situation, and they will have an answer for you. So I'm happy to be one of the people that provide to this group and share my experience. If you come into situation, if I can help, I have no problem with that. I think it's very critical for every one of us as a landlord to share your experience, share the bad tenants. I like this group. Actually, this group is one of my screening step now that I search the name in this group, right? So,
nice.
So I really encourage everyone to share the experience as a landlord to protect each other.
Awesome. Samuel, what you've just said really embodies this culture and this kind of collaborative community that we want to build with the landlords across Alberta. We're just very thankful to have your time tonight, because you hit it really on that. You hit the nail on the head with what we're trying to do, and thank you. We really appreciate it. So
you're welcome.
Yeah, Chris, is there anything you want to throw before we end the show?
Yeah, I'm just going to throw it there just to reiterate, because we had some late joiners who said, again, we are still looking for a little bit of help with moderators. So if you would reach out to MacKenzie and I with a personal message, and we can chat, see if we can work you in. Also, like you guys to know that we are continually working behind the scenes, bringing new partners in. Want to make sure you're aware of Single Key and Neighborly. Use our links. If you don't know them, reach out to us, because you get a discount for using them. Some great partners. We also have our eviction specialists. There's 4 of them on our team here, and those guys can do a number of things. They can do the whole package for you, or you can do the package and they can speak for you, because they're very articulate, all 4 of them, and they do very well for you. And we're also going to be talking to, we have a bailiff that's also part of our page, and we're going to be bringing him on eventually here to talk about the eviction process. And there's some, that was very interesting to say the least, because I got to work with his team on one. So the last thing I'll say is we will be expanding our page to MacKenzie. I don't want to steal your thunder, because I know you've been working on it, but
do it.
We're going to be going to a web setting as well as this Facebook page. And like I said, you people sound like Don Cherry, eh? You people out there have brought this page to where it is, and we thank you so much. We're over 2,000 members now, and we're going to take it so there's more information available to you through a web access, but it's all in the works. We have a bigger, better coming yet. Just bear with us. We do need a little bit of help, and so if you're so inclined to be a part of our administration of the page, touch base with us, please.
Yeah, I'll just quickly add to what Chris is saying. A little bit of thunder stealing, but I absolutely love it. We have a new community platform. If anyone has been using Facebook long enough as an educational tool, if you create a post out there, the chance of you find that post a week later, even 2 weeks later, or a month later, is nearly impossible. Facebook seems just to consume information. So we've got a new community platform. It has a news feed feel like Facebook, so it's very easy to use. There's a very low learning curve, but we'll have our own calendar on it. We've got topics. So if you want to talk about tenant screening, you want to talk about the RTDRS, you want to talk about documentation, leases, we're going to have all these different categories that you can post topics into, and it's going to be super easy to use. And as well, we're going to post all of our exclusive discounts there, so you guys have one central source and it's easy to find that information. So there you go, sneak peek, it's out. We'll announce that leak here soon once we're still working on it. I want it to be really good for you guys before we make the official announcement. This is the sneak peek.
Don't commit to the date, Mac, because there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's going to happen.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Again, this is the only show in Alberta dedicated to landlording. It's the Alberta Shop Talk show. Thank you guys for tuning in. We had our guest speaker, Samuel, tonight, alongside me, as always, Chris Noble, and myself, MacKenzie Wilson. We're very happy to have you. We'll see you guys next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Take care.
Night, everybody.